The European Commission has put forward a framework regulation in which it reworks the statutes and funding of the European political parties and foundations. Our task was to put together an opinion, and it's this opinion that I will present to you. The text was recently adopted by the Civex Committee, and before that we carried out widespread consultations. We've talked to the experts from the European Commission. We have also held conversations with Mrs. Giannakou from the European Parliament. She is a member of the Committee on Constitutional Affairs. In November last year, I held a stakeholder meeting in which I talked to all of the European parties and foundations. We dealt with pretty much all of the issues that arise from the new text, and you will find a lot of this information in the annex to the document. European parties and foundations are subject to rules which were set up in 2004, but the new regulation that's set to replace it has been formulated in such a manner that we in the Committee of the Regions have also been consulted. So what is the main objective of this new text? We want more democracy in the European Union and deeper integration of the member states. And we're convinced that we need to have general rules that work in a transnational manner so that there are European-level rules that can help to improve the democratic legitimacy of the EU as a whole. We need that urgently at this particular moment in time. It's an important first step towards a European political framework for the parties and foundations. It makes it possible for European parties and foundations to be registered, and they would thus have a European status that would be on the basis of European law. However, there is something that we do regret here. In the Commission's original text, it suggests that the foundations can be taxed at the national level. But in a true European space for parties and foundations, it should be possible for these parties and foundations to be represented in regional and local level organizations. This would allow them to be integrated in the various different levels of government. But we need to appropriately define the local authorities and regional bodies. We are in agreement with the objectives of the proposal that, yes, the foundations and parties should work in a transparent manner, they should be recognized officially, and they should work in an efficient manner. They also need to be accountable. We think it's particularly important that the European legal statute, there should also be conditions which would be that the values of the European Union should be reflected in these parties and foundations. That's to say, respect for human rights, rights of minorities, respect for the rule of law and the legal systems. If these basic values were to be infringed, then the cases should be analyzed, first of all, and that's also an area where the Committee of the Regions could be involved. In the draft text, it also talks about the funding possibilities for the parties and foundations.
Véleménytervezetünkben ennek kiterjesztésére teszünk javaslatot a Régiók Bizottsága vonatkozásában.
Now, the European Parliament would be involved, and there's an open issue still here, which is whether the parties should be those represented in the Committee of the Regions too. But I think it's important because it would make European policy much more visible, and it would allow an interface between local and regional levels and European policy as a whole. I think that's important. Now, I think it would be a good idea if these rules were to be implemented before the European Parliament elections in 2014. I would also like to thank my expert and the Secretariat for their precious support and help. I would also like to thank the members of the committee who've entered amendments. I think we have 7 amendments, and I think we can now...
Igen. Tisztelt kollégák, én is nagyon szépen köszönöm a módosító javaslatokat, és
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank you for the proposed amendments. I have taken them on board because in most cases you've improved the text. So I think that the quality of the text has benefited a lot from the ideas you put forward. However, when we look at Amendment 3 and 7, I don't support you for the following reasons. In the Civics Committee, the political groups have already arrived at a consensus. You didn't have any problems with this idea at the time, so it was a consensus then. That's one reason, but the other reason is that the registration has to have a prior condition, and that would be that a party would have to cover at least 7 countries in national or regional levels. And for that reason, I felt that the Committee of the Regions should be included here. Now, we've discussed this issue with Mrs. Giannakou before. When we discussed it with her, she felt that the European Parliament would be against that idea. But, however, that hasn't actually happened. The European Parliament hasn't opposed this, and why shouldn't we defend our own interests as an institution? It's not intended as a provocation. It's not really over the top as a precondition. So that's to say that at least one member, if it's to be a European political party, they should be able to send at least one member to us as well. That's the idea. Quite often the regional and local levels fall victim when you're in the sphere of crisis management. And if you're going to follow the approach of multi-level governance, it doesn't tend to take place in practice. So we felt that this was a moment where it's particularly important to take on board this opportunity to support the importance of the regional level. In the group meetings, we also raised this issue. Colleagues from other groups have supported my approach, but at the end of the day, it will be the vote in plenary that's going to decide the issue. So the majority will decide whether these go through or not. So